challenge my eyesight, but we are linking everywhere today. Hill's Chinese service just across from where I am. Great to have you with us. Northern Beaches, great to be linking with you. Go Manly. Macquarie, always good what's happening over there. On the North Shore as well with Yami and the team. Over in Bondi in the east. Great to have you guys with us. Then in the city in Alexandria and in Waterloo, in the inner west, in Central West Sydney, in Greater West. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Then in Southwest, Wollongong, Newcastle, Villawood. Then, as we already heard, up in Darwin where we're praying. We got some local Darwinites here. They got excited. Good to have you in the room. We're praying for everybody up there because of, just the storms and everything. We're with you guys in our prayers. Sunshine Coast in Noosa, Brisbane, Central, City and Greater Springfield, Gold Coast Central, Melbourne, City, East, West, Greater West, soon to be Southeast as well. Then in Geelong, in Hobart, in Perth, and even up into Bali, Fiji and Tokyo. Konnichiwa to everybody there. How good's that? I'm doing part 2 of a series I began last week on the power of a healthy church. I was only going to preach this week, and then I started preparing and I realized I got way too much to say. And so I called an audible on Friday as I was preparing, and every now and again I get to make a decision. And I made a decision and I said, hey, I think I need to preach last week and this week talking about the power of a healthy church, helping us to understand again what we are a part of. And not just what we're a part of, but what we give into, what we sacrifice for, and the power of the church when it's healthy. I talked last week about my journey with our church began at the end of 1986 and into 1987 when I was finishing high school at Castle Hill High School, CASO, to those in the know. Shout out to the alumni. Yes, I could tell. Intelligent people over in this section of the room. Macca's in Castle Hill was the place for the local social hangs. Some of the greatest music ever in the history of music was released in 1987. I did share that with you last week. U2 released the Joshua Tree album. We had Whitney Houston releasing Dance with Somebody. We had Michael Jackson and Bad. We had Guns N' Roses with Sweet Child of Mine. We had George Michael telling us you got to have faith. And then we had Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Now, some of our campus pastors suggested that this week, Phil, don't just preach. You need to do a rendition of Living on a Prayer to start the service. I refrained, but some of them did create an image that I'm going to put on the screen right now. Is coming up, and this could have been what you experienced today, but I kept you from having to deal with this. Any moment now, it will be on the screen. I can see it, and let's see. Is it working sooner or later? I could pick a TV up and turn and face it to you because I can see it. But I'm sure at some point it will maybe. There it is. Wow. It was worth waiting for, wasn't it? I mean, what kind of a respect is there for their pastor when these are the images that get posted on the campus pastors chat? As I mentioned, despite all of that was going on, there was also some challenging times. Interest rates were super high. I know in my family, I had 2 younger brothers, 3 boys. Dad was stressed because he had a mortgage with a really high, we're talking interest rates in the 14 and 15%. He'd borrowed because he'd stepped into a new aspect of his career, becoming a barrister, and borrowed money to do all of that. And there was stress with my brothers and dad and mum trying to raise us. And I also mentioned about how my mum suffered with a level of mental illness. And that didn't always make it easy for our home life. And yet in the middle of all of that, I found a church. I found a church home. It was called Hills Christian Life Center. There was nothing especially amazing about it, but it was a beautiful community of people who were doing their best to love Jesus, doing their best to help and serve. It was not, as I put it, a perfect church, but it was a place where I found love, a place where I was accepted, a place of grace. It was fun, there was laughter, there was friendship, there was purpose, and ultimately an understanding of what it means to know Jesus and walk in relationship with Him. You see, I believe a healthy church creates an environment where people encounter Christ, change and grow. In fact, not just grow, but even flourish in life and begin to walk out their God-given purpose. The writer of Hebrews, as I started last week, let me read it to you again. Hebrews 10:24 says, "And let us consider how we spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up on meeting together." Here the writer of Hebrews is saying it matters to meet together. Why? Because when we gather together, we encourage each other. We encourage each other towards love. We encourage each other toward good deeds. And let me go back to it. Verse 25, "Not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. And all the more as you see the day approaching." There is something about the church, not a perfect church, but a healthy church that is powerful and impactful in so many different ways. And so last week we shared a few ways that I believe the church, when it's healthy, is powerful and impactful, and I just want to share a few more with you today. So the first point, it's either point 1 or point 5, depending on whether you're taking notes from last week, is simply this: healthy churches create environments where people flourish. See, I believe that God's plan for you and I isn't just that you survive in life. You may go through some tough things. You may be in a tough season right now, but I believe God's plan isn't just that you survive, but that you thrive, that your life can grow and be healthy and move forward. In fact, we read about this in Psalm 92, verse 12. It says, "The righteous will flourish like a palm tree." That's the righteous, the people of God. "They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon, planted in the house of the Lord. They will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." Now, I may be getting a bit older, but I'm believing I'm going to continue to bear fruit in old age. I'm wearing green today because I'm staying fresh and green. And I believe for all of you the same. In fact, my wife and I celebrated 32 years of marriage this week. And I've got to say, the church has played a part in us building a healthy marriage and raising our family. The church has played a part in helping us in good times and in tough times, providing role models and people to talk to, and someone to pray with, and someone to encourage, and examples of how to raise your kids. See, flourishing comes from being planted. And being planted means allowing your roots to go down deep. I've got here a pot plant, a plant in this pot, and this plant is going to be limited by the pot that it sits in. Its roots can't go down too deep because it's in a pot. Now, I talked a little bit about this at Hillsong conference this year, and I also did mention that I preached about this once in America. And in America, I was preaching and I asked, "Does anyone have a pot plant at home?" And you could see the look of confusion. Some of you are just getting it now. There was a look of confusion, especially from the pastor in the front row. Here's the guest speaker asking, "Does anyone have a pot plant at home?" A pot plant in America refers to a certain type of plant, which I don't endorse or encourage you to be growing at home. And people were a little bit confused, and I was like, "Anyone got a pot plant?" There was one guy up the back, put up his hand. Just one honest guy in church. We're not referring to a specific species here. We're talking about in a pot limits the growth and how a plant can flourish. See, sadly, sometimes it seems to me that some Christians put themselves in a pot, maybe because they're afraid of getting hurt or something happens that could offend them. And so you put this protective coating around you and you don't let the roots go down deep. And sometimes what happens when you do get upset or offended, then we move and we go somewhere else. And we hope that in that place, they're going to be exactly how we want them to be, that we're going to find the perfect church. Guess what? If it was perfect when you show up, it's not anymore. And that's the same for me, because we are not perfect people. God uses imperfect people to build his church. We're talking about a healthy church, not a perfect church. And so here's the thing. At some point, if you want your life to flourish, you have to break out of some of the things that you're afraid of and let the roots go down deep. And that can happen in a whole lot of different ways. Maybe it's time to get involved and to serve. And say, I'm not just showing up on a Sunday, but I'm actually going to get involved in helping somehow. Showing up for wrap and pack. Maybe it's that actually I'm going to start to give and contribute. I loved what we heard here at the Hills from Donna in the offering moment when she said, we're not living for me. As people of faith, we're living for we, the greater us. When your roots go down deep, you're breaking through that isolation and that idea that it's just about me, and you realize your life is created for something deeper, and you let the roots go down deep. And over time, when you let the roots go down deep, something starts to grow and flourish in your life. On Friday, Lucinda and I had the privilege of being at the wedding of a beautiful young couple in our church. And they are a young couple whose parents grew up in our church. It was Ava DeMoro and Jaden Sugunarajan. How good did I go with that, Marino? Marino and Anna, the parents of Jaden, are here with some of their friends who have come for the wedding. And Sam and Kylie DeMoro very much loved and been part of our church for many years. And these two kids, because they look like kids, got married. And I loved that they'd grown up in the house of God. And all around them were church family and friends, there to celebrate them and to help them and to encourage them that as you get started in your marriage, you're not alone. But you got a church family that wants to support you and see your life and your marriage flourish. And it was beautiful. And then Ava's bridesmaid, chief bridesmaid, I'm not sure on the correct term, Tara gets up and shares her moment, her little speech. And Tara's family, I think, are here. And they've been part of our church for many years also. And Tara talked about how her and Ava met when they went to summer camp. Back when they were in, I think, grade 7 or 8. And they both went alone. And they had their little room that they were in, and the girl who was their leader looking after them, a volunteer who's taken time off to serve these younger kids, got them all together and said, what's one thing you're praying for? And Tara said, my prayer is that I find a friend. And Ava said, my prayer is that I find a friend. And they found a friend. And now many, many years later, one of them's getting married and the other one is alongside her, cheering her on, giving a speech, because their lives have been connected through the beauty of a healthy church and their lives are flourishing. Guys, that's what God does in his people when you choose to let the roots go down deep. And that's just one example. You could tell me your own story, many of you, of how you let the roots go down deep. And your family's flourished. And yes, you've been maybe through some tough times and some challenges here or there. But life is moving forward because the power of a healthy church gives you something that I don't believe you can get anywhere else. Number 2 or number 6, depending on part 1 or part 2. Healthy churches care for the lonely and the vulnerable. I believe everyone should feel welcome in church, no matter who you are or what your story might be, that you, as we often say, you belong here. We've got a big sign as you enter most of our campuses that says, welcome home. We don't want you just to feel like you're attending a service. We want you to feel like you will be embraced by a family. In James 1 verse 27, it says, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. See, I believe God places the lonely in families, and those families are found in the church. It's our responsibility to look out for those who are lonely, who are vulnerable, who are hurting, who maybe feel marginalized by society or overlooked. And can I just encourage you, if you've been in our church for some time, that you would continue to do that. Because we can get so connected into our world and our friendships that we get insular. Let's always look outward and go, who could I bring in? Who could I include? Who could I make feel welcome and embrace? I want to read to you a story that was shared with me a couple of years ago by one of our youth pastors in South Africa. And although this story is in context of how things operate in South Africa, it reminds me and emphasizes to me deeply what the power of a healthy church can do. And I believe for all of us, it has impact and implications for us. So let me read this story. This guy, young guy, writes to me, one of our youth pastors. He says, we have a boy in Fuel. Fuel is our early high school age youth program called Charles. He and his family live in a township just up the road from Century City. That's where we have one of our main church campuses in Cape Town. He's lived in poverty all his life, and his dad is out of the picture. Charles first got involved in church through summer camp. He was sponsored to go, and his life was radically impacted. He hasn't missed a church service, youth night, or discipleship group. It's a small group gathering since. This Sunday was his 14th birthday. And so we took him and his discipleship group and a few friends to the mall in between services to celebrate. When I asked him what he normally did for his birthday, he told me that he'd never had a birthday party before. To which I responded, well, today is going to be the greatest day of your life. We took him and the boys for a pizza. The last time he'd eaten a pizza was to celebrate New Year's Day as a special occasion with his family. He savored every bite, continuously thanked me and the other youth leaders as he was eating. Afterwards, we surprised him with a cake. Charles had never had a birthday cake before, and he asked if he could get the biggest piece. Of course, Charles. After the cake, we took him to the arcade games. And I was amazed and encouraged to see him equally sharing out the tokens we'd given him to every boy who was with us, even the boys who could easily afford to buy their own tokens. Once the boys were finished, he excitedly traded in his tickets for fizzes or candy, which he shared with all his friends, calling them his party packs. As we walked back to church for the 5 p.m. service, he pulled me alongside, nearly in tears, and thanked me and the other discipleship group leaders and said this was the greatest birthday he'd ever had. He also mentioned that it used to affect him a lot that his dad wasn't around. But since he's found his place in church, the gap has been filled by his discipleship leaders and youth pastors. And then this guy writes, amongst all the craziness of being a youth pastor and the hundreds of young people, both rich and poor, it's easy to forget the simple and life-changing power of what we do. Charles didn't only get to have a birthday he could never have had outside of church community, but the gap of fatherlessness was filled as well. practically by his leaders, and spiritually by him coming to know Jesus. If it takes birthday cakes and pizza to fight fatherlessness and build a nation, count me in. And I say count me in too. Anyone else? Now, maybe the story's a little bit different here, but can I tell you, there are still a lot of lonely kids out there. There's still a whole lot of people dealing with all kinds of challenges that the church, just by being the church, can help and bring what people are desperately looking for. We have a nation that has real issues with domestic family violence. Kids don't feel safe going home. Mums trying to raise their kids, struggling with how to do it, with issues of anger and violence in their home. And maybe it's hidden, but it's real. And church, we can play a part in these things, bringing help and healing and a place for those who are lonely and vulnerable to know they are not alone, to strengthen them and give them courage to keep moving forward in their lives. See, church makes a huge difference in dealing with loneliness. In fact, I think we have coming up on the screen some slides, and we're just going to look at a couple of practical things here. We don't do this often in church, but I thought today we'd just share a couple of little practical elements of why the church matters. 1 to 3 Australians feel lonely. The cost to mental health is 2.7 plus billion annually. Religious involvement is linked to reduced loneliness, higher life satisfaction, stronger sense of purpose, better community and relationship satisfaction. Church attendance boasts social cohesion across belonging, worth, participation, social justice, inclusion. Churchgoers constantly score higher than the national average on all of these things. This is the power of a healthy church. See, even in our church, let's have a look at what it says. This is from the last National Church Life Survey. 86% of people coming to church here, this is our church, have a strong sense of belonging. That's great. You're not just coming feeling isolated. Someone is making you feel at home, and I pray we could get that to 100. 89% agree their church is inclusive of different kinds of people. We are a diverse congregation. We are a diverse church family, and I love it. Not just in the football teams that we support, but in all the different cultures. And now the beautiful wedding I was at on Friday was a prime example of that. Seeing Sam DeMoro in a Sri Lankan, is it a sari? Is that, what's it called? A versi. Sam DeMoro, who came from an Italian background, in a versi, doing a Sri Lankan dance at this wedding was one of my highlights that will stay with me for a long time. I may have captured it on video and played it to myself a number of times since. Maybe that's going to be part 3. We'll have Sam on the screen. 70% have found it easy to make friends. And again, I hope we can increase that number. We want to be a church that's not just a friendly church, but a church where you can make friends. Okay, number 7. Healthy churches celebrate and encourage the next generation. We'll always be a church that is looking out for encouraging and supporting and releasing the next generation. In Psalm 78, verse 4, it says, "We will not hide these truths from our children. We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord, about his power and his mighty wonders." And then I love what it says as Paul writes to Timothy, a younger man in faith, which is encouraging to all of the next generation. In 1 Timothy 4:12, "Don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Be an example to all believers in what you say, in the way you live, in your love, in your faith, and in your purity." Young people, we celebrate you. We want to see you flourish and succeed. We want to cheer you on. Young people aren't just the future of our church. They are very much right in the center of the present of what God is doing in and through our church. And we want to continue to give room for young people to find their voice. My goal, Lucinda and I talk about this, our goal is to leave our church to the next generation as healthy as possible, and then to cheer them on and to say, you guys go for it. And we are a church that is coming into, where are we? We're in our 40s now as a church. We're getting a little bit older. And there are generational changes happening and new generations of leaders coming through, taking on the responsibility and carrying the load and carrying the weight. And I love it. And we need to continue to make room for this next generation. Some of the stats just from our own church, from Summer Camp 2025, show that in kids, we had 609 kids at summer camp and 92 salvations. And then with our play groups, we're impacting almost 16,000 parents and caregivers and children just by providing the opportunity for parents in the community who have no connection to church to come and find a place that helps them as they look after their kids. On average, with youth, we have over 1,600 young people in our youth programs every Friday night. 1,400 plus students were at summer camp. And how's this? This is a pretty cool stat. Almost 47,000 young people from the community attend a youth safe space program. We saw one of those on the screen. Talked about Lucy from the school that we heard about. We do a safe space there. 47,000 kids come to those. That's amazing. 5,800 young people enrolled in our City Care Shine strength programs, teaching identity, purpose, and value. And then we can see our Love Thy Neighbor Christmas appeal. 14,000, almost 15,000 toys. Over 7,000 food hampers. The church is making a difference. The church will continue to make a difference. Guys, this is what we play a part in. And I'm encouraging you and helping you to understand it, because sometimes the way we see the church portrayed in our world is diminishing the power of the church, is sometimes making you feel like, does the church add anything? Yes, it does. The church makes a significant contribution to society. In fact, here's another youth-aged crime reduction. Almost 90% of studies show stronger church presence equals lower youth crime. Where there's healthy churches, there's less youth crime. In fact, regular church attendance for 14 to 25-year-olds, 57% less likelihood of substance abuse, 39% less likelihood of committing a crime. These are big numbers. The church adds a whole lot to every community, every city, every part of society that we are in. Let's understand the power of what we are a part of. I just want to encourage you. The church has made, and will continue to make a huge impact on the earth. And we will continue to do everything we can to build a healthy church. Next point, healthy churches challenge us to grow, become bigger, and add value to our world. And we've already seen that a little bit there. But Jesus said it like this in Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. Jesus is saying, hey, you're called to be the light. This world's pretty dark. Don't hide away. Don't let shame rob you of the power of being a shining, bright, healthy church. Sadly, we have agendas out there that will try and diminish the church. But I want to remind you, not just what I'm saying, what the statistics are telling us. Church in community is making community better. Mark 12:30, Jesus said this, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. We've got to love God, but then we've got to love others. You know, as disciples, as followers of Jesus, we grow in this. And the process of discipleship stretches us beyond our comfort zone. That's what happens when you're part of a healthy church community and the roots go down deep. You get stretched. You learn to love others, maybe in a way you never had before. You learn to serve. You get involved. You make a difference. Here's another interesting stat. Economic and societal benefits of the church. Let's put this one on the screen. Almost 200,000 volunteers are mobilized by Christian churches in Australia every year. That's 30.5 million volunteers hours. That's $340 million in value. 142 million in charitable donations generated through church influence. The total of that is almost $500 million of impact on the country through volunteering and giving. That is not a small number. Church attenders are up to 2 times more likely to give time, energy, and resources to charitable causes. 46% of church attenders volunteer in community groups outside their church. We get involved, not just in the church, but outside the church. Well done. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is the power of the church. Let's go on and have a look at the charitable impact. In the charities and the NGO, the not-for-profit space. NGOs, not-for-profits, deliver over 50% of Australia's welfare and social services. Over 50%. So what that's saying is 50%, over 50% is not carried by the government. The church is a big part of that. 25%, of the 25 largest charities, 23 are directly linked to Christian churches. 1 in 4 churches provide chaplaincy to prisons, hospitals, schools, sporting clubs, first aid responders, plus marriage, parenting, trauma counseling, aged care, migrant support, domestic family violence support. The church is involved in all of these things. And we don't want to ever get away from doing that. In fact, I'm believing there's a whole lot more that we're going to do. And as I was putting this together, my heart was getting stirred again. Guys, let's get involved. Let's say I'm all in. There is so much that our society is looking for that the church can bring. When the church is healthy, not perfect, but healthy. And I want to just encourage you as we conclude, healthy churches help people face real issues and walk free. Jesus said in John 8:31 to the people who believed in him, "You are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Church isn't just another social gathering. It is where people's lives can be changed through Jesus and the healthy community. James 5:16, James, the brother of Jesus, says it like this: "Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results." James is saying you need each other to be healed, to be made whole. Jesus meets us at our deepest struggles, our deepest pain, but he also connects us to a church community to help us to heal. I believe a church should be that place where you can talk with someone about real issues you're facing, to be honest about struggles and challenges, to find a place where you are loved, where you're not judged, but that someone simply listens. Maybe they're praying for you, but says that with Jesus there's a way through. There's a guy, Troy Kiddo, sitting in the front row over here. I thought I'd be fine talking about this, Troy. Troy's brother is Darren Kiddo. Darren is one of our pastors, has been for many years. Darren, I think, is over in our Greater West service and campus today. Darren arrived at our church also, I think it would have been the end of the 80s into the 90s. And he'd grown up in a family with 4 boys, mum and dad, just not far from here in Kellyville, but he'd tell you life wasn't always easy in his family. Dad had a few challenges, and Darren had things that he had to deal with because of that. But someone invited him to church, and he found Jesus, and he found church community. And then he had a brother, Troy, well, another few brothers as well, but Troy also had his own challenges, and Troy ended up getting caught up in alcoholism and really in a low point of his life. Troy, why don't you just quickly come up for a minute? And Troy was married. Bringing the tissues up. Thanks. I'm going to probably need those.
For you or me?
I don't know. It'll be good. How long ago was this? Now,
2008.
2008. You were married. You had some kids then.
Yeah, 3 kids.
3 kids. But alcohol is basically destroying your life.
Yep.
And you had a brother who prayed.
19 years.
And then he invited you to church.
Well, you were talking about Hills Christian Life Centre. You know there was a drive-through bottle next door to that, remember?
Yes. Yeah. You used to go to that one.
Drive-through bottle.
Yeah.
Wrong church.
Wrong church.
I went left instead of right.
Yeah.
But you guys in Hills Christian Life Centre, Darren would invite me, and I remember going through that. It was like a
little maze, the
little
old
maze.
council chambers.
And you were there, and you see Dan Pykea floating around there a bit, and Matty Tickner, and just things like that. Getting invited into those environments was very helpful.
And then you made a decision to follow Jesus.
Yeah, I did, through the program.
And Dazza got you into 180TC.
He did, and he walked me and the CEO around one day, and the next day I was in program.
And what happened to you through that?
It gave me a chance to, well, you just walk through those doors there, and there was people, I remember yourself, and I remember even Jay Jury, you would sit there at the 180TC section, and people walking up and just saying, how are you? Like you did today. Yeah. You said you went and said hello to a couple of the boys. People that just come and say hello, how are you? How you doing? Just want to encourage you. And that, for me, in my journey with God, was enough to show me the heartbeat of Jesus through people, for then me to find my own relationship with Jesus.
You got free of the alcohol.
Free to the alcohol.
Marriage turned around.
Marriage turned around.
You now got 5 kids.
5 of them.
You bought a television at some point.
Found Netflix.
Your life has radically changed.
Radically changed.
To the point where we just celebrated Mark, who has retired as CEO, and you're now stepping up to be CEO of 180TC. The very place that helped you get set free, partnered with our church. You're now going to be leading it and helping many, many hundreds more young men get free of their own challenges in life.
And the next CEO might be sitting there.
You never know. Is that amazing or what? That is the power of the church connected to programs that are helping people. We love you. Congratulations. And Troy also is a manly supporter, so you know he's going to go far in life. As we conclude, the worship team can join me. Matthew 6:18, Jesus says these words to Simon Peter. He says, I tell you that you are Peter. His name had been Simon, which means one kind of tossed to and fro. But now it's Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. What's happened in this moment is Jesus has just asked his disciples, who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter has said, you're the Messiah. You're the Savior. You're the one that we've been looking for. You're the one I can build my life, everything upon you. Jesus says in response to that, I'm changing your name. It's now Peter, which means rock, something solid. And on that rock, not just the rock of Peter, but on that understanding of who I am, I will build my church. See, the church is built on Jesus, knowing who He is, understanding Him as our Savior, understanding Him as the one who brings hope and healing and help to our world. We build our lives and our church on Him. But Jesus goes on and says, this church is not a passive church. He says the gates of Hades will not be able to overcome it. I don't know about you, but I've never seen gates attack. Gates stand in the place where they are. And gates are there to keep some things in and some things out. Gates are about boundaries. And yet Jesus was saying to Simon Peter, I'm going to build my church on what you understand. What does that mean? Wherever those gates are, that means the church is not passive. The church is active. The church is advancing. The church is taking ground. And that is what we believe the church should be all about. It is not a passive come to and experience on a Sunday kind of deal. It is way more than that, way deeper than that. It is about knowing who Jesus is and saying, come on, together, let's advance the kingdom. Let's advance the kingdom. And whatever the enemy has set up as his roadblocks and as his gates, sets him up around people, set one up around Troy. But guess what? The church prevailed. His brother's prayers prevailed. The name of Jesus prevailed. And there are all kinds of gates that the enemy sets up that it's time for the church to advance and take ground and move forward. And so I want to encourage you, church. Maybe you were all in and you've started to sit back a little bit. Let's go all in again. Let's go all in again. Come on. Our world is not looking for a perfect church, but it's looking for a healthy church. People who can just point them to Jesus and say, come on, you're welcome. People who are sowing and giving and contributing. People who are saying, where's the need? I'll put my hand up and I'll get involved. See, when the church is healthy, I believe it is an unstoppable force. It is the most powerful force for good on the earth. And I'm giving my life to it. And I want to encourage you to give the best of who you are and what you can to build the church of the Lord Jesus Christ. Because who knows what lives are on the other side, what change, what transformation, what impact will happen on the other side of your obedience and commitment to Jesus as we build His church together. Can we stand?